Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime.
The president delivered a moving speech on national security today. And even though it looked like this president is being drugged and poisoned and in need of a respirator, we can rest assured that this entire event has been orchestrated to pump up oil prices and to pump up the poll numbers, ladies and gentlemen. On the left is video of the missile launches from Iran. On the right is what a real attack would look like. Of course, we're not seeing any real damage from these bases. It's pretty much admitted that this was just some kind of show for the news out there, ladies and gentlemen. And at first, they were reporting 80 people killed, and then it was like, oh no, these weren't scuds, these were duds, if you will. We're hearing about a Boeing being shot down by Iranian anti-air defense. We're going to be talking about the footage, the evidence, everything we know so far about this administration when it comes to its incursions in the Middle East. And there's been quite a bit of activity lately with drone strikes and oil tankers and the like. But every time we hear people talking about Iran, we can't help but think about this Wesley Clark interview talking about the memo. At first we'll go into Iraq and then Syria and then Iran, ladies and gentlemen. And that's where we are now. This is an actual picture of one of these Iranian missiles, at least the crater left from the explosion. And as you can see, it just landed in the middle of nowhere. 22 missiles were shot, they say. That's 322. We're getting some other footage, satellite footage, of the attack, exclusive here from the Assad Air Base in Iraq. And it looks like, one building here at the bottom left was just, kind of like blown apart. Looks like they got a building. But this doesn't really seem to correspond with other footage, not the same kind of, blast ratio or radius, if you will. There's a lot to discuss when it comes to Middle East incursions with this administration. Each and every one of them has been based on false pretenses. It's a fraud. As soon as Epstein was arrested, that's when the first oil tanker basically went missing or was hijacked. And ever since, it's just been one thing after another over there. And the very first cruise missile attack in Syria was based on a staged gas attack. And that was admitted by the OPCW in their internal documents and the like. There is questions about this drone attack from Yemen, which is an Iranian proxy. How did they get through these, missile defense systems, if you will? How is that possible? And I suppose, another question people could ask here is, if these satellite pictures are legit, if we can ever get them again, but if these satellite pictures are legit, how did these missiles actually make it through our missile defense system? And, where is our money really going? Is the question. And how much worse is it going to be with these, new age missiles from Russia? I'm sure you've heard of these hypersonic missiles. Imagine, a barrage of hypersonic missiles like this coming your way. The damage would be extraordinary. But what we saw in the news the past 24, 48 hours is a bunch of hogwash, and it just shows you how desperate they are. A lot of people think that, of course, Trump must be ahead in the polls, and it's going to be like last time where, you think it's close or something like that. But, there's news articles out there where this administration has fired their very own pollsters because they don't like the numbers that they're seeing. It seems like they might be in distress a little bit. And another example of the very questionable, storylines coming out of this administration was this latest, strike against the ISIS leader. And they were talking about the guy, running into a tunnel, weeping, crying, and the like. And that was actually disavowed by the Pentagon. So you really have to wonder, what is going on out there at 1600 666 Pennsylvania Avenue, and what is the real reason behind these attacks in Iran or Iraq or Syria and the like. And I think there's something that's probably, missing from most people's understanding, but we're going to try and fill in the blanks for people out here. And the story is this. The people that are running Washington, D.C., let's just say the demons that are running Washington, D.C., are also running the governments of other countries in the world. Take a second to let that sink in. The demons that have basically taken over, the politicians, the bureaucrats, the people you see on television, the CEOs and the like. These people that are literally demonically possessed. Well, it turns out that they're not alone. And, the people in other governments are possessed as well. Now, some people are going to scratch their head at that one. Some people will understand what we're saying there, and other people will just completely lose their minds. And we appreciate the feedback.
You are making a case for a war with Iran. How did the war with Iraq turn out? You're doing exactly the same thing we did in the case of Iraq. We don't want another war in the Middle East. Let's
you want to
see.
go outside and give
How does
speech,
Iraq turn out? How did Libya turn out? We have the people of Syria suffering.
So that's censorship in real life. They're like, hey, if you want to, give your speech, why don't you go outside where nobody can hear you? Now we're looking at footage of the missile strikes. The left is the launch and the right is the impact. Let's see if we can get a hold of the video guy there. It looks like something is missing. But you can see one of the missiles come in. We've also got some other footage that we wanted to cover about the Boeing. See if we can find that in the archives here. But this might be the Boeing as it's, crashing and burning. You can't imagine what the last 30 seconds would have been like for those people on board. But it appears that they were shot down by mistake, either by our side or their side, but this definitely looks like another one. Any case, I think that's definitely the footage. So there's that footage out there. Now we were talking about the demonically possessed, and we were trying to really find footage of that, but somehow we ended up getting sidetracked. And if you pay attention to the television, it's non-stop product placement for the dark side. I mean, even on 9/11, you saw the face of the devil show up there. And it turns out that this face shows up more often than you might think. And all these celebrities on TV, your favorite actors, singers, they've all sold their souls to the devil. You've seen the compilations for yourself. And that's what's really going on, is these people are demonically possessed. They are legion. They're working together in real time in ways that you can't even imagine out there. And so when people look at, world events as they're unfolding on the television, on the Beast System Network, people should be, aware that they're all on the same side. All these people on television, they're all on the same side. They're all agents of the devil. And, sometimes, it'll be a person from one country or a person, from another country. But the vast majority of them are, working for the dark side. And, we could get into who's who. We have in the archives, if you're interested in, all of that, be sure to check out our video archives out there, ladies and gentlemen. But the evidence is overwhelming that we're fighting against the armies of the devil in every country. And sometimes they get together, kind of like Republicans and Democrats, and they put on a show and they make you believe that, oh, these people are, at each other's throats. Let's pick a side, and that way, we can cheer on, the fight. But it turns out that it's all pretty much a hoax. Now, if you're not part of their demonic legion, then they're coming to invade you. That's basically it. And people that, are, outside of their various networks, whether it be financial or economic or industrial or whatever, then, they're going to wage war on you. They're going to, they're going to put on sanctions and the like. And in any case, that's, who they basically focus on these days. Like the Russians, I mean, they're basically, the only country out there resisting this New World Order for the most part. And of course, it is what it is out there. On the other side of this equation is the eugenics programs. Now, it's one thing to say, well, all of these people are, demons in disguise, which they are. But it's another thing to talk about what these people are actually doing. And they're trying to destroy the planet. They're trying to kill everything on Earth, like what's happening down under. You've seen the footage of, the millions of, poor little animals out there basically roasted in the field and the like. That's what these people are about. And it's come out that the vast majority of these fires were arson. Now, whether that was a dew weapon or a Molotov cocktail, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, these fires, these disasters, they're man-made because evil is as evil does. This demonic force, this demonic army that we're up against is out to destroy the planet every which way it can, every which way it can get away with. And that means that the last thing they're going to do is start lining people up on the street and shooting them point blank, to have, people record that and put it online. These people will slow kill. These people will stab you in the back. They will, set up death towers in your neighborhood and just make it look like natural causes. That's what these people excel at. And, for the most part, you won't even see it coming, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, the outcome is pretty much always the same. It looks like natural causes. It looks like suicide. It looks like an accident. But it never is, for the most part. Let's not dwell on words like, never. Never say never. But for the most part, in general, this is what we're looking at. And, many of the people that are suffering from anything from diabetes and neurological disorders and the like are actually victims of the system that has poisoned them. And they've just labeled it as something completely different. Getting back to the big news, this president has delivered a very breathtaking...
You were making a case for a war with Iran. How did the war
As long
with
as I'm
Iraq
president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime.
It was painful to listen to this. And, we've been looking at,
As long as I'm president of
we've been looking at the president's micro-expressions during the speeches for quite some time. And it seems like literally the situation is degrading. We saw that emergency evac to the Camp David physicians, or wherever they sent them. And, it seems like there's something going on. we're not going to diagnose anything on air here, but I think most people are watching this thinking the same thing. And who is that Hitler-looking guy on the right, far right? Do you see him? He's almost got the little mustache going. It almost seems like, some of these people, are perhaps hiding something. And it really seems like this is just the same old song and dance. I'd love to be in the boardroom when, somebody from the executive comes in and goes, listen, guys, we got to get these poll numbers up. So we're going to start rolling out some entertainment and drop some fucking bombs, and that's basically what's going on these days. And they're always itching to basically cycle the inventory. That's, big business out there. And look, everybody, wants the very best defense, and, everybody wants to support national defense. But I think that people have also seen the real ugly side of what Eisenhower was talking about in these last wars. And I don't think anybody is real eager to go there again. Now, obviously, this president isn't too eager to go there either. Otherwise, they would have just pulled the trigger and gone to war. But both sides seem very, they just seem like they're content on saber rattling, if you will, which is, a wonderful thing. Nobody wants to see a war. And I suppose you might, ask the question, well, why are we, talking about it if we don't, if we don't want to push some kind of war agenda? And I think that, look, whenever you see dishonesty out there, that basically means that, we're on the wrong path. And whatever these people are going to, throw at us next, it's just going to be bad news. Look at this video guy go. I don't know what he did there, but that's some pretty spectacular video editing. Any case, ladies and gentlemen, much of the same news out there. There is quite a bit of news to cover. Check out our website, stfnreport.com. We update quite often with super interesting, stranger than fiction news stories from around the internet. We found this one to be particularly interesting just because of the attention that's being paid to this, and of course the possibility of World War III. It'll be interesting to see what they finally conclude when it comes to the downing of this Boeing and all of the people that were killed there. Never forget that this administration is rolling out the 5G. They're imprisoning journalists like Julian Assange, and they've really just kind of like done everything they can to fuck everything up. Pardon our language here, ladies and gentlemen. But I mean, they should have locked up Hillary day one, but instead they've helped let these criminals go. Have no doubt about it. And they've whitewashed it just as much as anybody else, for the most part. And, if they wanted to, send out a strike force and arrest Hillary like they arrested Roger Stone, they could have made that happen. But they didn't make that happen. They didn't arrest any of the crew members from the FBI and the like. And not only that, they're basically flirting with Zuckerberg at Fakebook right now. I'm not sure if you've seen the headlines, but they are trading compliments to each other just the other day. And while, conservatives are being censored off the internet, this guy's trying to fill in the vacuum so that, the only thing that you'll need to listen to is Trump's tweets and everything will be okay. And it's not going to be okay because they're rolling out the death towers. They're not rolling back the vaccines. There's still fluoride in the water. There's still Common Core in the schools. They're still mass producing libtards in public schools. And, this president is basically pandering to any libtard that will listen, from LGBT all the way to whatever. And it's really kind of, disturbing, to say the least. And people really need to wake up out there. And even if you like what, these people have to say on television, it's part of the con. And while you're focused on Iran or World War III or the Russians or the impeachment, you're certainly not talking about these death towers. Everybody should be talking about these death towers. Everybody should be policing, what's in their airwaves right now, because you absolutely have no idea. And, from the reports that we're getting out there, it's bad. It's like living in a microwave oven in some of these towns right now. Some of these towers are operating above FCC limits. Some of them are basically, just black sites, if you will. Just rogue cell towers going up, collecting money from the telecoms without permits, without regulation, without inspections, and the like. And, people just have no idea if they're getting, dosed by who knows what. And this day and age, it just takes a software update on your computer, on your phone, to make you, basically a victim out there. They can modulate these frequencies, and they know the frequencies to induce heart attacks, respiratory illnesses, and there's absolutely no regulation, no policing, no, anything when it comes to electromagnetic radiation and, what's in the airwaves in your town right now. You have no idea. That's why we recommend getting a meter, so that you can at least get a feel for what you're not seeing. We recommend the EMF 390. You can check that out on our website, stfnreport.com. But, get one. Unfortunately, the El Cheapo from Home Depot isn't going to help you pick up these death towers. You're going to have to get something a little more high end, and they can run up to $400 or $500, sometimes $1,000 or more. The EMF 390 is only $109. It's a lifesaver, and we highly recommend it. Check it out on our website. Shop around. You'll be back. I guarantee it. Any case, ladies and gentlemen, there's all sorts of news to cover, all sorts of different angles of this story. And look, nobody likes the Iranians. If you look at the cover story, nobody likes the Iranians. They're bad news for most people out there. And yet somehow they're still able to sell their oil and make, tons of money out there, despite the sanctions, which are just a joke. Everything you've been told about, Iran, the Middle East, is pretty much a big joke. There were no weapons of mass destruction. ISIS was a fabrication of the Obama administration. And yes, they did murder quite a few people out there. And that's why the previous administration should have been brought up on war crimes. But, there's just no justice in America. And that was, well proven with the, the whole FISA situation. The rogue FBI agents planting evidence against the president and some kind of coup d'etat. Remember that? And no justice there, no justice anywhere. And you just really have to wonder, what is the problem? What is the problem with this administration? Why won't they actually do their job? And the answer, we should say, is that it's still the same club. These are still the same people. And, despite it all, ladies and gentlemen, these people are not on your side. And again, you may agree with what they have to say. They may sound like, they're legitimate or they're sincere, but, the proof is in the pudding. There's no new wall. There's no term limits. They didn't arrest Hillary. They certainly didn't investigate 9/11. And all of the eugenics are still continuing to this day. And so imagine if you were president, what would you do? Day one, ladies and gentlemen. And they just haven't done it. So you can tell them by their fruits. And, the Judas in disguise, the snake oil salesman will always tell you what you want to hear. But at the end of the day, it's just a con. And, this isn't about, ragging on people or being mean. This is politics. And this is what news is supposed to be about, talking about the real issues. But, free speech is gone in America. Democracy is gone because, there isn't a free and fair election. It's a staged selection. And, that's just the tip of the iceberg. They're poisoning the food, the air, the water. They're rolling out death towers everywhere. It's a nightmare. It's like the Twilight Zone, literally. And, it's like it's like a runaway, train. It's totally out of control. Nobody human is at the helm, if you will. And it's just like, a bunch of mad hatters just trying to, destroy everything. And that's, abundantly clear. That's been made abundantly clear by, their policies, their deregulation, their Gladio B events, their failure to act on, numerous subjects, from draining the swamp, arresting Hillary, rolling back the eugenics, stopping, the Cold War and the like. And, it's just bad news. It's just bad news. You'd think they'd be focusing on, the poisons in the water, in the food, in the air, the problems with education and healthcare, cleaning up our streets, securing the borders, and the like. You'd think they would have flushed out, the septic tank, but instead, they're basically enabling this beast system, protecting him. Don't find, Google or Facebook, according to this administration, as they're, complementing each other. Because, this administration wants to roll out death towers on every street corner. And people should be upset about that. That should be like, a make or break for voters out there. Who's enabling the rollout of death towers? And their big excuse is like, oh, well, it's within FCC limits. Well, legal doesn't mean safe. And there's a huge uprising of doctors, physicians, and the like that are trying to push back against this 5G. And this administration doesn't want to listen. They don't want to listen. And there's a reason for it. And what we need is a candidate that will deliver justice, ladies and gentlemen, that will, break up this beast system, that will roll back the eugenics programs, that will deport, the demonic, and the like, and, so on and so forth. That's what we need in this country. We don't need more of the same. And unfortunately, we're going to get locked out of this next election because you're only going to be able to choose between, Trump and Commie Sanders. Who's going to choose the communist out there? So, that's basically how this system works. Bad and worse. Of course, you're going to choose bad because worse is worse. And that's how they get you every single time. Now, people woke up to this after 9/11, but somehow they went back to sleep because they think, this guy's on your side. Well, why didn't they lock Hillary up? Why did they lock up Assange? How come all of his friends are going to prison and none of the Democrats are going to prison? What's up with that? Why won't they, do their job out there? And why do they have to orchestrate these types of events instead of focusing on, the real enemy, the devil and the demons out there? So we'll leave it there for this broadcast. Be sure to check out our website, stfnreport.com. If you want to help us reach more people, buy us a beer at patreon.com/STF News. Till the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.